All right. Welcome to this week's live office hours coming at you from Earth. It's I say that as a joke because I have a personal blog and a lot of people will put like, Florida, Boston, Massachusetts, wherever. And I put the Earth because I'm that dork that's like, I feel like I want to start mailing letters to people, but instead of just putting like the country, I also want to put Earth and just see if it gets like accepted or not. If you're like, wait a second, is this okay? Oh man.
Yeah.
So we're the year is moving really fast. Really, really fast. We've got Proven Conference in a few weeks, which I'm very excited about. Got plenty of shirts. I hope for swag to give out at the Orlando Proven Conference at the end of May. So if you're going to be there, definitely come hang out, come say hey to us. We definitely want to give you a shirt, want to have conversations with you, hear your feedback in person. And really just network. We love doing these kind of things. Being able to actually talk in person with your users is just mind-blowingly exciting for whatever reason. And yeah, a lot of stuff happening in the background right now. So I just wrapped up a webinar with Restock Pro, one of our recent integration partners. I'm starting to have more conversations with new integration partners. So we're moving pretty fast here, as well as just some major things happening in the background of the company right now from a product perspective that I can't quite share, which I love to tease things to come. But Casey, how's everything going, man?
Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, everything in support's been nice. Getting a lot of folks set up and running both Maven and buy box strategies, combination
Yeah.
of kind of the two. We know that seems to be the best setup for a lot of folks, obviously depending on those listings and those goals. But yeah, everything is great here in Boston, other than the weather this week. It seems to be like it's going to rain most of the week, but yeah, no, things are good. We're getting towards summer, so
Nice.
yeah, maybe some planning towards Q4. I know a lot of folks make about 60% of their revenue in that time, so
Yeah,
time to
that's
start
happening.
looking at that planning phase for that time of year.
Yeah, it's funny. You start planning for Q4 and Q2.
Yeah.
It's like it's your first year as a seller. You plan for you don't plan for Q4. You just experience it. You ride the roller coaster and you go, cool. I'm gonna start planning in Q3 for Q4 next year. I'm gonna get ahead of the curve. And you do that year two, and realize that's not even enough. And then you're like, crap, I have to do this in Q2 most likely, especially if you're doing wholesale. Is the most frustrating thing, and I experienced this myself as a seller. It's funny. Actually, this happened the first time I flew to Boston. I had just exited a relationship, as I like to call it. And my stepdad is obsessed with the Red Sox. I was like, hey, man, let's take the week. Let's go hang out in Boston. You've always talked about it. Seems cool. I want to go see a city because I'm a suburbs kid from the South. And it was Q4, and so I've got this amazing toy account, right? And I ordered, I think, a little over a thousand, maybe a few thousand units, and they're getting checked in like batches of 100. And as like I would, refresh Seller Central, they get checked in, and be like, awesome. I will refresh it 20 minutes later, and they're sold out. I'm like, oh my gosh. So naturally, I'm calling my supplier and like, I need 10,000 of these. And they're like, we have nothing. Our warehouse is a ghost town, and we can't even get anything from the manufacturers until February. And I learned that lesson. I was like, man, how much revenue profit did I leave on the table because I didn't do enough preemptive planning, right? This was a brand new account. What's funny is this was only my second order. I had done a few test orders, as I always recommend, 50 units, just kind of see, this is going right into Q4. And this was really like my first full year Q4 with wholesale, which is just so different. With RA, OA, it's its own kind of thing. There's only so much you can do, right? I was just talking with the Restock Pro team about, when you can use Restock Pro versus when you kind of should it. And like, they made a good recommendation, which I agree with, which is like, if you're really doing resell like OA, RA, it's really hard to use a tool like that because you're kind of forecasting, right? Doing restocks, you need longevity of data. And I made a comment, which was like, you really shouldn't consider using it if you have limited access to inventory. Not just like, okay, I contacted my supplier, ordered 2,000 units, and they only have 1,000. Not like that. Like, you can only go to Target and hope that they have 3, right? like it's a fundamentally different approach here. And so, for me, I learned how important it was to look at the data, especially when it's something new, right? Like when it's a new account for you, and you should be adding new accounts throughout the year. Every month, every week, really, you should be adding new SKUs, new accounts. Even in Q4 where you can, it gets difficult because, again, access to inventory. But going deeper into like the Keepa data and just being like, where could this go and how much should I bring on? And that's hard. That's a really hard thing because you don't want to, over purchase and have a bunch of things left over. You got returnary that's going to come in January, right? So you got to think about these kind of things, right? You have to look really deep at what are the return rates that I can realistically estimate here. What kind of volume, how's the competition levels going to change? Because if you see that there's not a ton of competition, but the demand's going to go up 4 or 5, maybe even 10x on some toys, you could take advantage of that. And so you really need time to do that, right? You can't do that in real time. And so you need to be able to not only analyze it and make good decisions, you need to be able to execute on these decisions, right? And so what you can do is you can sit down in Q2, start to do this analysis and be placing back stock order or back ordered orders with your brands, with your suppliers to start to come in at different increments, right? So instead of saying, I'm going to get a 10,000 unit order, you break it up and say, hey, I want to place a 2,000 unit order on this week. 3 weeks later, I want a 5,000 to come through, and you can ramp it up. But that's so important because it allows your suppliers to predict their manufacturing. And I think a lot of sellers don't think that next second order here. It's really just, what do I need? But you're not thinking about how do you what you need may not be available. So work with your brands to say, hey, listen, I'm really think I'm going to have to place a 10,000 unit order. And I know you guys are going to ramp up. It's Q4 too for you guys. I just want to make sure that we can put this on the books and, we can backdate the payment, whatever makes sense, put 50% down. I'm a huge fan of doing that. Even just saying, hey, listen, I know it's a big, you got to go to manufacturing for this. There's a cost for you guys. Let me put a 25, a 50% deposit down to cover manufacturing just for my batch. And then once it's ready to ship, I'll close out that agreement, that order, and then we're good to go. Because it is so frustrating when you run out of those few thousand units of toys and you're just like, great, I'm done. And you're watching all the sales keep going and it's not your inventory. And you're just like, what in the world did I do? Better than ordering, 100,000 units and only selling 5,000 units, of course. But you're most likely not going to be doing that anyways. Let's be frank here. So,
right.
As we're getting closer and closer to Q4, you got to start thinking about these things. Even if you're not doing wholesale, if you're doing RAOA, how can you start to increase your inventory levels, start to build these up in a healthy way? You got to watch out for your IPI scores and stuff like that. But can you build this up so that when it happens, you can take full advantage of it? Because unfortunately, in the peak of Q4, it's not really that you can take actions to take advantage of it then. Like it's done. Like it is what it is. And most of the time, the logistics, right, the lead times of getting things checked in basically goes to zero. And you're like, cool, I can't even ship things in if I want to. So there's a lot of pre-planning. I've yet to see somebody have a really good, and if anybody who's watching this right now has a good resource they've found for how to basically strategize going into Q4 that you found really helpful, please share that. Because I would love almost like the Q4 playbook. That's what we need. This just got me pumped. We need a Q4 playbook of here's how to approach it, whether you're doing wholesale, RAOA, what are those subtle differences? How do you approach it to get the most out of it? Because it is a big deal.
Yeah. And I think especially what you said, like being able to make those orders ahead of time, like that's not even going to be an option when it comes to Q4. Manufacturers are going to be all backed up, shipping times, all those things. So kind of setting it up in advance so that you do set yourself up for success this Q4, but then that also helps strengthen that relationship with that supplier and manufacturer. So going forward, maybe you're able to strike a better deal in advance. Like, hey, I know we had a great Q4 last year. I'd like to put in that same orders schedule and kind of work from things there. But yeah, definitely just a lot of moving pieces and really hard to make accurate estimations in terms of how successful or unsuccessful certain products are going to be in that time. So, I mean, I think we talk about it very frequently, but looking at the data that is at your disposal and trying to make informed decisions from that is so much more important now than ever. And it is sometimes hard to figure out what data to look at. If you have been through Q4s, I always recommend starting with that data and things that sold well, and maybe you ditch the items that didn't. And if it's your first Q4, lean on those communities that we talk about. Like other people have been through this, see what sort of knowledge you can pull just from the ecosystem. And just try to make the best decisions that you can with the information that's at hand. So
Yeah, you brought up two really important things. The idea of leaning on these Q4 groups that always pop up, right? There's always Facebook groups, Discord groups where it's like, we're just hacking Q4. It's like, awesome. That's great. Everybody's lasered in on that one thing, sharing everything below. That's all good. But another thing is that relationship building, where I'm so glad you brought this up, because a lot of sellers, when they're getting into wholesale, are like, well, how do I stand out, right? Because it used to be capital. Whoever had capital, you're going to be fine. That's no longer the case. Capital's super cheap right now. And I think being able to have forward-looking conversations with your brands, with your suppliers, and saying, "Hey, listen, I know we're kind of early, but I want to start strategizing and forecasting for Q4. Make sure that we can take advantage of this with you guys, and make sure we're able to make the most out of it. You're able to make the most out of it. We want to work hand in hand." Because what's interesting is a lot of the suppliers you've been working with have been in business for a decade plus. They've come and they've seen it all, and they might have data that they can give you that you can't access via any tool. They're just like, listen, here's what we tend to see. And you're like, oh, wow, that's good to know. And they're going to know these things, right? They're going to know that our average Amazon quantity per month in Q1 is X, in Q3 is Y, and then it, 5Xs. Well, if you think it's going to 2X and they're like, no, we 5X every single year. Well, great. How does that help influence you in terms of how you make decisions? And also being able to have conversations with them to help them give you ideas for lead times, right? Hey, if I was to place this large of an order, would you guys need to go to manufacturing? Okay, well, how long would that take? Okay, cool. Let's factor that in, because manufacturing isn't always super streamlined. Sometimes, especially for big brands, they're doing massive batch orders and not just these incremental things, right? Like some will do like every month. They just know they're getting shipments in. They have a high frequency. But sometimes it doesn't make sense to do high frequency from a cost per unit perspective. So they have to do these massive batches, and they might only forecast for a whole quarter and say, I'm going to order everything I can for a quarter. And when we're done, we're done. And then they start working on next quarter. But again, you got to go to manufacturing, negotiations, all that stuff. So you can work directly with the brands, the suppliers themselves, to give you that insight that you may otherwise be flying blind from. So I'm glad you brought those two things up, because I think those are actually very, very key in terms of like relationship building and how you're viewing things. So as everybody's jumping in here, appreciate you again making the time. This is open office hours, right? So throw your questions, comments into chat here. We'd love to dive deeper into anything repricing related or related, seller related. We're just geeking out with Q4 here for a bit, because it feels like it's already here, which is crazy. But yeah, happy to dive deep into all kinds of stuff. But yeah, so we're gearing up for the next 12 months, events, sponsorships. Like we're going ham on literally everything right now. That's why I got bags under my eyes a little bit here. No, it's good. We're doing so much on the content side, so much with partners. Just wherever we think we can add additional value, we're trying to do it right now, which is just exciting. A lot of new things for us as a company, especially like these in-person events. It's funny. I've spent a third of my life, more than a decade, in the Amazon selling space, either as a seller doing wholesale or on the software side with Aura. And I can count the number of in-person events I've been to on one hand, which is crazy. And we got to change that. We got to start doing that every month, so we're going to start doing a lot there for sure. So also we got a few things jumping in here. Luke the G, it's good. That's the short end of it. Let's see. Artem has a question here. Was wondering how long ScanPower integration takes to work. Anything to do other than activate? Not really. So we do this basically when you first connect it, we'll immediately trigger things. So that should be relatively fast. I believe for ScanPower, we sync every 15 minutes right on the dot. Now you can't speed that up if you need to. You can hit that resync button that's there, and we'll kind of forcefully trigger that. We only allow that every few times, but you can do that if it's not fast enough for whatever reason. If you just had a huge influx of things and you're like, I just want to get those in there, great, you can do that as well. But basically it's every 15 minutes. So that's like kind of the fallback there. So that's good. It's as real time as we can basically get it. But once you've done that, there's really nothing else that you need to do. You toggle it on in ScanPower, you toggle it on in Aura, go about your life. That's a good thing. We like taking these very complicated things and reducing them down to the simplest actions for users. That's the fun part. If you look at like hyperdrive, it is very complex from an engineering perspective, but you, the end user, all you have to do is hit a toggle. You just say, do it. And we go, great. We'll do all that for you. Maven, same thing, right? Maven's handling far more scenarios, far more complexities than a regular rule-based strategy would. But what's funny about it is your rule-based strategies have anywhere from 15 to 30 settings for each one. I don't care what company you go to, even us, it's 15 to 30 is kind of the range I tend to see. Maven has one, right? So it's handling far more things and saying, hey, you, the user, just tell us one thing. We'll take care of everything else for you, which is amazing. Let's see here. Hey guys, sorry if it has been asked. Any plans for handling low inventory fee? It's a killer. It is. Again, we were just wrapping up a webinar showcasing Restock Pro and the integration we have with them. They added a few columns to be able to see this data. And we've talked about this a few times, Casey, but I like highlighting this because it's kind of top of mind for every seller right now. It is so in flux, right? They just earlier this week were like, oh, it's kind of different, right? Like, so they're getting a lot of flack from sellers, from the community, and it's hard to build something that I can give you a column, but that doesn't really solve the problem. So I think there's a lot of band-aids that every solution I've seen so far has kind of been a band-aid, right? It's just like, well, you can see this new column, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for us, we always think about, again, that concept of technical leverage. How do we take this thing and kind of abstract it away from you, but it's still being considered, right? Like basically it's being factored in and handled, but you're not having to handle it. So every solution I've seen thus far has been, here's the data, you got to go do a bunch of manual stuff, which isn't ideal. And again, the manual stuff you have to do, the things you have to consider is kind of changing by the week right now. And so again, rather than rushing into something here, we're saying, let's kind of let the dust settle and figure out what Amazon's actually going to do here. Because to be honest, it's just as likely that they get to a point where they say, we're going to remove it, or just fundamentally change what it is and how it's being done. I know, in case you could speak to this, because I know we had a conversation about this, it is being factored in to the fees. So it is being factored in, but you want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, so that was something that was kind of brought to our attention. We were looking at ways to implement this most effectively and most impactfully for you folks so you don't have to do as much manual work. So we were looking at ways to, or for potentially implementing that on our end. And in the process of that, Amazon started to send us that fee structure via our API connection with them. They do not do this for all of their fees, which is why it was a little bit of a surprise to us. But last time we checked, and as of now, I believe they are still sending us those fees, and they are being incorporated correctly into your auto-calculated min and maxes and just the general fee structure when setting those prices. So in terms of that low inventory fee, you should be all set there. But unfortunately, we don't have much more information other than that because it was a fix deployed by Amazon and being sent to us via their API. So long story short, you should be all set. Those should be factored in as expected. And I know there are sometimes discrepancies between Amazon's fee calculator and our fee calculator,
So
but with that specifically, that is sent to us directly from them. And as recently as last week, I saw numerous examples of Amazon's fee calculator incorrectly calculating their own fees. So kind of going back to what Dylan said, things are very much in flux in that region, but we are calculating those accurately based on what Amazon is sending us, despite what their Amazon calculator may say and how that differs from what's shown in the platform there.
Yeah. So short end of the story is like where we're able to factor them in because they're being provided. We do factor in the fee itself. And this goes back to our recommendations of how you set your minimums. We've always said you should automatically be setting your minimums. Why? Because things can change and people are like, well, what changes that frequently? Well, sometimes it's not that things change frequently. It's that you have these big changes, and instead of you manually calculating and setting these and then the fee changes, you're like, well, great, now I have to go redo all that. Well, actually, no, or just did it for you automatically, right? So if you're automatically calculating your mins based on like ROI, when that fee is available, great, adjusted, you're good here. So you're not going to lose money. But then like the second part of this is, well, how can we take the model of what they're doing here and then bake that into repricing as a whole? That's the part that I'm really like, it's changing a lot. And what I don't want to do is over engineer for something that in a week's time changes yet again. And again, it could be a fundamental change. And Amazon's not the best at making these changes very transparent. Sometimes they will roll them out and not talk about them for a week, and then the announcement goes live. Well, a whole week, if we were to build something that supported Model A, we'll say that how it currently works, and then Model B gets introduced but doesn't get mentioned, there's going to be a lot of problems. And we have to think about like that risk kind of profile. So we try to be kind of conservative with things like this, just because we've been around for a while. We know how Amazon likes to shake things up, add things, remove them. Listen, we supported Small and Light with 1.0 just in time for them to remove it entirely. We're like, awesome. Like, not worth the time to build. So you kind of have to be a little cautious is what I'll say. But it is top of mind, 1000%. See, Artem, anything new in the pipeline? Tons. So again, some major things I cannot share yet. All I can do is tease them. Definitely looking at more integrations. So talking with a few more integration partners. Going to be at more conferences, so in-person events, meeting with our users, potential users. We've been really well connected in the Amazon space, but it's been mainly digital, and it's kind of different when you get to hang out in person. Like I've known Larry Labarsky for a decade, and seeing him in person, I didn't realize he was like 6'7". So that no, Larry's awesome, man. It was fun to be able to hang out with these guys I've known online for a decade plus in a lot of cases. So, but yeah, there's dark mode. There's a lot of design stuff that we're looking at right now. So a lot of the design, we've gotten some great feedback, and we track things like NPS score, so Net Promoter Score. It basically measures, do people like what you got here, right? And it's been going up every single week. I just looked at it this morning, but there's still a lot of innovation for the UI UX of the product. So we're taking a look at that again, as well as some deeper kind of foundational things. Like right now, it's like really going into like optimizing everything for scale. We're growing like crazy right now. So little things crop up. You're like, oh, cool. Like that's a little thing. Let's go optimize that again. Like, or you have somebody come on with 2 million active listings. You're like, cool. Like, didn't expect that. Let's make sure we can support that person really, really well. So doing a lot of stuff there. I wish I could share more. I can't, because it's kind of stealth mode right now. It's a big thing is what I will say. But yeah, there's a lot of little things too that we're doing. If you go to feedback.goor.com, you can actually see what's currently under review, what's planned, what's been completed. And you can, of course, add your own comments, add up votes for things that you want to see. Like a lot of people want dark mode. Love it. Love dark mode. So we're designing dark mode right now. So definitely a lot coming your way. See, Artem, big thumbs up for recommending ScanPower. Thank you. Of course, yeah, ScanPower team's awesome. Paul is amazing. It's funny, you hear these names, but you can't really put a face to them until you meet that person. And meeting Paul was phenomenal. His team is very much like ours in the sense that, like, they really, truly, deeply are passionate and care about what they're doing and want to keep doing better and better and better. So watching their team basically create their own version of the early stage program was phenomenal. Like, that honestly blew me away, because it wasn't just, let's integrate, we want to get this from you. They're like, well, what about these other two things? Yeah, let's add that. And, well, what about this? So they really think deeply about how are they supporting sellers the way like we like to think. And that was just really refreshing. It was honestly amazing. So yeah, appreciate that. Let's see. Daniel, you're telling me this integration won't have to have me inputting cogs anymore. So you'll have to put them somewhere, just not in Aura. So if you're doing it, an integration with any of our 3 integration partners, ScanPower, Restock Pro, you'll put them into that system, and then we'll import those for you. Now for Restock Pro specifically, like there's different cost methods. So you can basically say, I want the average cost, or I want the most recent, so the last cost. So you have some configurations there depending on how you think. But yeah, you'll just put them there. And what I love about the ScanPower thing, especially for like OARA, like Restock Pro is really great for wholesale mainly. That's why we have these 2. They work really well depending on your business model. You're already putting that data into ScanPower anyways, right? So why recreate that work? And the way they built the tool, it's very like sequential, right? It's like, cool, I'm sourcing, I'm adding this. Okay, I need to create my thing. You've already done the work. And this is something I talked about in our webinar with them, is like, you should only do certain tasks or work in the context of when it makes sense, right? So like when you're sourcing, you're adding your cost anyways, right? Why do you need to add it anywhere else ever? You did it when it mattered. You shouldn't do it later. And so what's nice is you're already doing these tasks. Now we're saying, let's remove it down the line. And so it's absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, you won't have to put that cog into Aura. We'll just sync that for you. I think it's every 15 minutes roughly. So you'll be good to go there. See, Luke, I like this one. Luke the G, can you explain how sometimes randomly a competitive and well-selling price is, say, $50, but I'll randomly see a sale at 110 and then boom, right back down to normal price? So if I'm reading this correctly, you're talking about Maven, and I'm assuming this is your price getting sold. This is what's so fun about what we do. Maven is incredible. So let me explain how this works. If you think about repricing from an economics perspective, you have a lot of competition, right? When you have a lot of competition, what happens to a price? It gets pressed down, right? There's a lot of downward pressure, which is why our optimal price that we calculate tends to be higher than the buy box, because that downward pressure. If the downward pressure didn't exist, you would just be at the optimal price 24/7. But you do have that. And so what's interesting is we're able to understand what's true, where we want to go, that optimal price, and what's true is your competition, right? What is each one of them doing behaviorally speaking? Well, if we understand what they're going to do based on what we do, meaning if I know that every time I say the word Skittles, Casey stands up, I can count on that always happening, right? Unless I see it change. Well, if I want him to stand up, I'm just going to say Skittles, right? So if I understand what's true here, where I want to go, I can now design certain behaviors to say, these are the set of behaviors I can utilize to close this gap. And so what ends up happening is we can actually rotate you up higher to the optimal price, get sales. And a lot of times you will rotate back down, but you'll see this. And so actually, if you go on like Twitter, Facebook, things like that, and you search for Aura repricing, there's tons of companies named Aura now, which is frustrating. But if you look up Aura repricing, and people just have an aura about them, of course. So there's a lot of spiritual Twitter posts, so you got to wade through. But Aura repricer or repricing, you'll see screenshots of basically this behavior happening, right? This phenomenon of, hey, I was getting a sale here, and then I got a sale $30 higher. What happened? Maven. That's why when people are like, why is it important? It's because of this. What we tend to see is people getting higher margins. So Maven, that optimal price we're talking about here, is designed to find the balance between sales velocity and profitability. These are kind of the two levers you have, right? If you want to liquidate, you have high velocity, low profitability. Well, it's important to understand that this balance can shift, right? A toy in Q1 is very different than that same toy in Q4. That optimal price in Q4 is going to be up here, not down here. So by having this moving target, that's how we define success. We define success by your price is at the optimal price as often as possible. Not you got more buy box ownership percentage, not the sales is higher. I can hack both those things. Mm-hmm. If you say, Dylan, raise my sales by 20%, and that's all you said, you gave me no other limitations, I'm going to hack it. I'm going to say, great, I'm going to lower your prices by 20%. Right? I'm going to lower your prices. Sales are going to skyrocket. That's basic supply and demand, basic economics. But we don't want to do that. That doesn't actually, you're not happy if I do that, right? So we need a more nuanced approach in terms of how we define and measure success here. And what we've developed is that optimal price. And so what you see more often than what we initially thought is sales happening above the buy box, because we're relieving this pressure, that downward pressure I was talking about a bit ago. So I can't explain like the closing the gap, because that's where the AI really comes in. But that's the rough model for how to understand like how is this happening? That's roughly how. But Casey, anything you want to add on to that?
No, I think you kind of nailed it. I mean, that's why Maven is so impactful. It's able to take in so much more complexity as opposed to just following the rigidity of rules-based strategies. That being said, rules-based strategies are effective depending on what your goal may be. But just kind of leveling the playing field and knowing, hey, a lot of sales come at this point, but if I bump it up X number of dollars, I still get good sales velocity, but I get a better profit margin. It's going to improve that bottom line. So its intelligence is really impactful, and it will become more intelligent the longer it's assigned to your specific listing. So that's always going to be evolving as it continues to gather that data.
Yeah. See Kyle here, very new to this. How often does the repricer change/check prices in the day? So we don't do it on a time scale. It's real time. So every time a price change occurs on a listing, we get a notification every time. The moment we get that, we react to it based on your strategy, or if you're using using Maven, the AI model, we'll respond basically. Now, in terms of how fast we're doing that, that is its own thing. So we've always had instant repricing, but instant repricing really means 1.5 to 2 minutes round trip. It's instant because it's instant in our system, and welcome to marketing. This is just how the repricing world has been. So, whenever we submit it to Amazon, round trip from when it comes back and is, accepted, all that good stuff being reflected by Amazon is 1.5 to 2 minutes on average. Now, the hyperdrive feature we developed, we can do that round trip in less than 10 seconds. But in terms of how often are we checking, it's real time, real time. So super important there.
Yeah, we have to come up with a word that means faster than instant.
And hyperdrive was the nerdy thing we came up with because it sounded cool. I think we played around with like a warp drive or something like, I don't know, time folding, I don't know. But hyperdrive really hit with everyone. Let's see, Luke, the Tesla driver. Is this the same Luke, the top G? I dig it. Seller board integration or Riot? We are talking with the seller board team. We're trying to make that happen for you guys. Certainly, I know they're wrapping up a bunch of stuff on their end with Walmart and things like that. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're definitely pushing for that heavily. Definitely hear you on that one. Love it. Let's get it done, boys. If we don't get a seller board integration, I actually consider switching. Love it. What I can say is, if you're switching to another company and they don't already have it, we're definitely going to get it faster. So that's what I will say. Yeah, ball's kind of in their court right now, but definitely pushing for that. And because you have the Tesla driver, I can say that you can use Aura on your Tesla on the browser while driving. I have done this. So you can FSD and reprice. It's a fact. Go to my Twitter. You can see that. Let's see here. Man, everybody coming in with that seller board. I love it. We don't need dark mode. We need seller board integration. Hear ya. Agreed. Some things slightly out of our control. Unfortunately, here's actually the interesting part about our world. Almost no software companies develop what are called open APIs, meaning we can just go build it ourselves and like there's no blockage. They're all private APIs, meaning like the team has to approve it. They have to give us like all of the documentation. We have to support working together. A lot of times there's the front end, so the design work that needs to be done by both teams. So you need both teams to be like, heck yeah, we're on board. Let's go. Here's when we're going to do it. So again, as fast as we can make that happen, we're making it happen. I pretty much ping them once a week at this point. Yeah. Let's see. Artem, I redid my entire workflow through ScanPower and Aura, and it's fantastic. Love hearing that. It's nice when we develop these integrations and just remove a ton of manual work, streamline things. That gets me super excited. See, Artem, even the buy box strategy raise feature is making extra money a little at a time on sales. Yeah, definitely can. That's the hard part about role-based versus Maven, the AIs. Like, there's a lot of things you have to get right yourself with role-based. And again, to Casey's point earlier, role-based is still great, like when you need it, right? This is why we haven't said we're only going to do AI. It's like, actually, that's a horrible idea. Because there are times when you just really need a specific strategy. You're like, there's always exceptions. Here's what's so frustrating is like, there's no specific model for how every listing behaves. There's no standard. They're all so fundamentally different. Even the way Amazon is, right? Like Amazon will let you compete with them and win on some listings and will tell you, sorry, but we're owning this listing and like tough. There's nothing you can do to get the buy box here. We're just not going to give it to you. So there's all these little oddities and exceptions that you have to account for as best you can. But even those things change, in real time a lot of times. So let's see, this Maven ability to get that customer's credit card off at an extra $50 compared to what should be possible is truly spectacular. This is why we love the Aura team. Yeah, this is why we're so passionate about what we do and why we get so excited. It's like where people are like, how are you so geeked out about repricing? I'm like, have you not seen the data? like I've been a seller. I know how hard it is. And like being able to increase your margin and not do any more work, in an ideal world, doing less work. Yeah, it's kind of exciting, dude. So yeah, for us, we really geek out with what we do here. I heard recently somebody was saying like, oh, repricing is a commodity. No, it's not. If you think repricing is a commodity and there's no innovation to be done here, you're going to fail. I'm sorry. I think that we're still just scratching the surface on what's possible here. This is definitely like a quantum leap in, compared to role based, especially for us. But there's so much more data we haven't had the capacity to go explore and experiment with, that once we can, it's like, man, like, I don't know, right? Maybe we are at 80% of what's possible here. Maybe we're at 20%. That's what's actually very amazing about what this is like, we get to chase that curiosity and go answer those questions, where I think a lot of our competitors and just a lot of software in the Amazon seller space, they're not that curious. They're just like, well, sellers want this, just give them that. It's like, yeah, but you have to put on your own product founder hat and go explore things, chase your own curiosity, and ask the questions that your users could never ask because they don't have the exposure to the data that you do, right? They don't have the experience of doing this day in and day out for 8+ years. And so for us, that's like a real big driving force. Like even with support, I mean, dude, we do this even at the support level, right? Like we talk all the time about how we're like, yeah, we crush it on support, but are we operating at 20% of what we're capable of, or 80%? I don't know. I'd rather just assume 40% and be like, let's go figure it out. Right. I remember, Casey, when you first joined, I was like, listen, like the way we operate is very different. It's highly scalable. And like, we don't need, 10+ people to support our users the way our competition does. And like training you through that process, like a lot of that, initial onboarding for you as a new team member is like changing how you're thinking and like how you're making micro decisions, because it has to be like a cultural thing. It can't just be like, well, here's how to do it. It's like, no, here's how to think about it, because I want everybody on the team, even Tasa, who's walking back there right now, think through scale. How are we building things to scale like crazy, and just ask the questions that nobody else can. So, but if you want to speak to how we do support and like that kind of same mindset we apply even to the support side.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is everybody always goes to any support team for any product looking for answers to questions, but they don't necessarily get the advice or the guidance that they need in addition to the answer to that question. So that's how we kind of look at it. It's like, hey, we don't want to just show you why this is happening or how to set something up. We also want to show you this is how you maybe want to approach it because of XYZ, or these are the best practices. This is what we've seen produces the best results. So, it's not just like, hey, here's the answer to your question. Good luck. We are trying to make sure that you do set yourself up for success. So it's always interesting. And obviously the space is always changing, but it is nice to kind of get folks set up that way. And as you mentioned, like beginning of the call, we're working on providing more content to our users. I've been in our makeshift recording studio all day today, trying to get some video content for you folks. So when you're getting started or have questions, you can start with that stuff. So, yeah, we're always happy to help jump into your accounts, check strategies, make recommendations, in addition to just answering those quick questions as well. So trying to be a little bit more all encompassing than just providing you with quick answers and sending you on your way.
Yeah. And we're actually about to completely audit everything we do in support in our platform, because they reached out. We're like, hey, we think you could do better. We're like, great, let's do it. Like, done. Let's talk next Tuesday. See, Jonathan, I love you, man. Solution is to just buy Sellerboard, obviously. That would maybe be faster. I don't know. No, they're a great team. I know being a small team, there's obviously a lot you got to juggle, but we're pumped to get that done. See Luke. I need a job with the OR team. I'm just a customer and I'm just as geeked out. Apply. We are hiring. Especially software engineers. Would love to hire you. Love it. See, Luke's geeking out here. See, this is Tesla drivers. You know what I mean? We're geeked out here. We geek out. Nobody can name one competitor of OR that is offering the same level of features at this price point with this ease. That's what we're hoping for, honestly. Like, I want to build amazing product that is easy to use, that gives you better performance at a not ridiculous price point. I don't want to be expensive and I don't want to be cheap. Both have cons, major cons. You want to be a good, affordable, high ROI rate. So I love when people are like, hey, can you sell me on Aura? I love when I go to like an in-person thing and they're like, sell me on Aura. Like, no, not going to do it. Don't do sales here. Go use the tool. You tell me. Go check the performance. If it made you more money, awesome. Give me a credit card. If not, come tell me why. And most likely, if you're not seeing the performance, reach out to Finn, reach out to Casey, and we'll tell you why. And we'll actually just fix it for you. Because a lot of times it comes down to like how you're doing your strategies, things like that. See, speaking of that, Lil-Wayne had a very informative call with Finn last week about using Maven and repricing strategies. Big ups to you all for having that level of customer service. Yeah. So for people who are unaware, We do one-on-one onboarding sessions. They're like 25-ish minutes. At least we try to keep them that way. Sometimes they go over because our users are awesome and we get to have really cool conversations. We don't care if you're in a trial. I don't care if you're in the early stage. Let's say you're in an early stage trial, meaning I think you're only going to pay me $27 a month. I don't care. We don't, when you reach out to support and say, hey, I would like to do an onboarding session, we don't go, well, cool, how much are you paying us? No. Like, we don't even check. We don't even care. And so my recommendation is join. We don't ask for a credit card to join. You literally jump in, schedule an onboarding session. And let's say we can't get to you, let's say 14 days, but we can't get you in for an onboarding session for 7 days. So you're halfway through your trial. We'll reset it. I want you to have the full 14 days of actually experiencing the performance to see if it's a good fit. So yeah, we love doing these onboarding sessions. We tend to take people from overwhelmed, like I have no idea what the heck I'm doing, to you feel like a power user. And oh, by the way, you're literally repricing at the end of it. We're in your account with you. And if you're like, oh, I have this one strategy I really want, great, let's build it now. In your account, you leave with it. You don't leave with a bunch of notes and things you have to go hope you remember. It's already done. Like, so we teach and we execute in real time with you, which is amazing. And to Luke here, Finn is the GOAT. So Finn Parker, one of our CSMs, Finn does most of the onboarding sessions. Finn is the GOAT, just like Casey here. Let's see. Areli, hi, I'm creating my listings in Aura. When adding the cost section, do I need to consider Amazon fees in that cost, or does Aura automatically add it when repricing? So we do automatically do this for you. So when you're adding your cost of goods sold, you really just need to put your buy costs. Now, if you're doing things like merchant fulfilled, where you need to factor in like your shipping costs, things like that, you can factor that in as well. Those are the only two things I really recommend doing. Well, actually, I take that back. A third, maybe prep. So depending on how you do your costs, I tend to look and recommend more so at just the cost of goods sold, not every unit cost. That gets kind of crazy. We're looking at features where we can basically give you more flexibility for how you're factoring in these additional costs, whether that's merchant fulfilled shipping or prep cost per unit. But anything you want to factor in at the per unit rate, you do it there. The one thing I would say, I really don't recommend that you try to factor in your FBA shipments. That gets really complicated, and it's really just not a good method from what I've seen. But yeah, no, we factor in all the fees. And again, what's nice about this is you're setting your min prices via your strategy based on like ROI, profit margin, fixed profit. So it's a moving target, right? So if the fees go up 20%, your min price just went up 20% too. So we're taking a lot of the things that you would have to manually do and saying, no, just let us do that. Because one, we can see the changes happen faster than you ever could. If you saw them, period, right? Most of the time you wouldn't even see it. You would just be like, why did my profit change? Well, fees change. Well, how did you know? They're not going to tell you your fees changed. They just did. But via the API, we see these things in real time. So if they go up, they go down, we react to that. So super important. Mm-hmm. See JV. So thankful for the beginner edition before I hit 10 in sales. Yeah, so that's the early stage program. So for those that are unaware, we introduced something called the early stage program. So if you're doing less than 10K a month in sales and you're not currently using Aura, you qualify. That's it. And you get access to Maven, Hyperdrive, mobile. Actually, I'll show you this because I love doing this. And my camera auto focuses, which is really a cool effect. Pull this up here. Aura works on your phone. There's a live account, even supports down here, right? So everything you could do on your computer, you could do on your phone natively, which is great, right? Like you're not downloading the application, you're just logging into your browser, adding it to the home screen, and it's basically a web app or a mobile app. So you get access to everything, including the support team, all that good stuff for $27 a month for up to 12 months. We call it a program, not a tier, because it is a time limited thing. But what's cool about that is, let's say you join, great, you're doing less than 10K, $27 a month. And let's say you explode, which I hope you do. What happens when you go over 10K a month in sales? Well, if you're within that 12-month program, we'll give you a 50% discount for the first 3 months of the tier you grow into. So we'll smooth out the cost, right? So you're not jumping from 27 to 97. You might jump from 27 to like 50 something, right? So trying to make this as less frictionful as we can, because like, again, been a seller, know how frustrating that can be. See here, Abib started using your service last month, and what a significant difference it's been making sales. Love hearing that. We recently had a new partner come on, and had been hearing a lot of things. A lot of people being like, "Dude, just do it." And so we jumped on, onboarded, all good stuff, and sent me a Twitter message. Was like, yeah, this is going to 2-3x my sales. I was like, that sounds cool. Next day sends me a screenshot. I was like, no, I was being serious. Like, you 2x my sales. It's like, yeah, that's great. I'm kind of used to it at this point, which is good. See, Artem, do you get additional markets with regular plan after entering your program? So with Essential, you only have that one marketplace, but we've designed the pricing and packaging. So if you happen to need more marketplaces, you can jump up to Plus or to Pro, whatever makes sense for you. And of course, as you do that, you get access to more Hyperdrive credits, more Maven listings. And one thing I want to kind of highlight with listings, it's unlimited listings. I don't care how many listings you have, but I do care how many are using AI, because that actually is a very costly resource. So we do limit how many listings you can apply Maven to, depending on what tier you're on. But in terms of how many listings you just have, I could care less. It's unlimited for all of them, even early stage. Because we don't increase your listings, we increase your revenue and your margin, right? So I care more about your revenue and margin and stuff like that than I do the number of listings. Listings actually never correlate to revenue at all. So you would still get that singular marketplace for early stage and for Essential, because most of our users, that's what they have, one marketplace. Like 98% only have the one anyways. But if you need to add two because you're growing, great, you can jump up.
Just one correction there, Dylan. The Essential plan does support two marketplaces. So
we did change that. Yeah.
So yeah, early stage will cover that one marketplace, Essentials 2, and then Plus jumps up to 3, Pro gets you up to 5. So yeah, if you do graduate from that early stage plan, you would get access to at least one other marketplace in that Essential tier, Artem. So
you're right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Manage 2 on Essential, but other than that, you were correct.
Yeah. It's been a long day. But yeah, thank you for correcting me there. So yeah, that's right. We initially had it set to where it was 1 for Essential, and we're like, you know what, 2 is actually kind of better. So that's right. So you actually do get 2 there. See, Artem's excited. That's good. It's nice when I'm a little wrong, but in the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See, Jose, I'm new. What is Maven? Also, I wish I could hover over the product picture on Aura and take me to the Amazon listing. In order to do it, I now have to click more buttons. In the past, you could do this by clicking the basket item. Yes. So that's changing. We're actually working on this now to make that a one-click thing, make it way more streamlined. It is a 2-click like UX flow right now. We're going to bring that down to 1. So we're working on that now. But Casey, I need to give my voice a rest. I'm going to let you handle Maven.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Jose, just before I jump into Maven, one thing about getting to that Amazon listing, obviously it's going to be 2 clicks from the SKU page. You'll hit the 3 dotted button in the top right and then take me to the Amazon listing. If you're on just your listings page, there will be a column for your marketplace. So if it's a US marketplace, there'll be an American flag there. If you click on that American flag for that specific listing, that will bring you directly to that Amazon page from the listings page. So that is 1 click to get you there, but it will be 2 clicks from the SKU page. As Dylan said, we're working on improving that. Maven as a whole, that's going to be our AI pricing strategy. So rules-based strategies are going to be very rigid, obeying the settings that you configure when you set those up. And it really does not stray from those settings. Depending on the situation, it may defer to a specific section of that strategy. If you're in the buy box, it's going to defer to that maintenance section. Otherwise, it'll be the pursuit section. But Maven is not designed to specifically target the buy box. Rather, it's focused on the best combination of sales velocity and profit margin. It does take Maven a little bit of time to learn from the competition and sales data on your listings, but it will test various price points before settling into the pricing range that it determines is most effective. And the best thing is it will continually learn. So if that pricing range is initially at one spot and then prices go up, sales increase on the listing, Maven's going to adjust accordingly to find what it considers to be that optimal price. So really takes a lot of the complexities out of setting strategies. Like Dylan mentioned earlier, typically like 15 to 25-ish settings in rules-based strategies. With Maven, there's really just 1. And I believe 2, I guess, if you want to uncheck it, unsuppressing buy boxes for you. Other than that, it's going to handle all those complexities automatically.
Yeah. So Maven's designed for technical leverage, meaning we wanted to say, how do we handle far more complexity, far more scenarios and give you less work to do as the end user. Because with rule-based, it, like Casey was saying, it's very explicit. I want you to do X when Y happens, and that will always occur. But sometimes X itself changes, right? And so when you ask us, hey, what's your go-to strategy? And actually the next question we're going to cover here is any strategy you recommend for beginners? Well, I love this question because I used to have a good answer, and it was the buy box targeting strategy. Well, now I don't, because the reality of it is every single one of your SKUs should have a strategy designed for it, and it should adapt in real time. Good luck. It's really hard, especially got like 1,000 listings, right? But that is really the problem we're dealing with here, right? And so we said, let's take a step back. It's less about giving you more strategies. And what if we instead could develop a model that could understand a few key things for you? It could define success where, for us, we call that the optimal price. And that's the balance between sales velocity and profitability. It's the two levers you got. So if we could do that, and by the way, this is a moving target, right? The toy for Q1 is very different optimal price than that same toy in Q4, right? It should go up in Q4 because the demand went up. So we know where we want to go. We've defined success, but we need to know what's true now and how that's changing, right? So what we'll do is we'll actually study your competition, understand who's going to do what. I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, if I always say Skittles and KC jumps, and I can just always count on that, well, I can maybe take advantage of that, right? Maybe I can say, you know what, I need KC to jump real quick. Well, how do I do that? Say Skittles. There we go, right? Like, it's a weak analogy, but roll with me here. So if we understand all their behaviors and what they're going to do, great. I can take advantage of that and say, well, what behaviors does the model need to utilize when to close the gap between what's true, where we're at now, and where we want to go? And so Maven's handling all that complexity for you. And so rules-based can feel complex because that 15 to 30 kind of settings in your average rule-based strategy that you have to understand and tweak yourself. But it's also very limited in what it can and can't handle based on what you set. Versus a model can say, well, I can understand what's happening and what's changing, and I can adapt myself. And instead of that 15 to 30 settings, you're doing one. How do you want to set your min values? There's a few others in there, like Casey was mentioning, where you can say, I don't want you to do certain things, but those are more like the exceptions. Like the thing you have to set is one, your min price. And that's not even like you setting the min price. You're saying, I want 30% minimum ROI. You do the calculations with fees and all that crap for me. Great. Right. So how do we, again, give you and handle far more complexities to give you more performance, all these good things, but require less of you as the end user? That's the technical leverage. I want to give you 5 output for 0.5 input from you, if that makes sense. So JV, in terms of the recommended strategy for beginners, I tend to recommend you start with Maven because it's going to handle far more for you, and it gives you time to get really good performance without having to deeply understand how to build rule-based strategies. I mean, we're actually, I just reviewed a video that Casey put together on basically talking about the rule-based strategies and how to create those. So we're going to have a video that's like really well polished for you on that. In terms of how many listings you get for Maven on early stage, it's 50. So you get to apply that to 50 listings, and that's in parallel, right? So you can toggle this back and forth, right? So as things go out of stock, great. Don't use Maven on it. Switch it up. See, Artem, I love this. Dope. Race to 10K. That's right. That's what we should have called it. We should have called it Race to 10K instead of early stage. I love it. Let's see. So Jose, how do you access Maven? So it's actually super simple. You go to the strategies page, you click add new strategy, and the top one there is called Maven. You choose that and you walk through the prompts. There's a little video that goes a little bit more in depth than what I was just talking about. If you want to watch that video, it's not super long. That just basically kind of highlights what I was just saying here, but without me rambling as much. A little bit higher quality. And you go through, set your min prices, name it, and apply it to your strategies, and you're off to the races. See, Areli Kid, you help, would you be able to help me create a personalized strategies other than Maven? I have an early stage plan. Of course, absolutely. So you got 2 options here. Reach out to support. The bottom right, you're going to see a blue check mark, or not check mark, sorry, a blue button. Click that. That's our chat. You can do one of 2 things. You can say, hey guys, I want a strategy that does X. Great. We can help create that for you in your account. Or if you haven't already, I would recommend you scheduling an onboarding session. Again, it's 20, 25 minutes. The reason for that is we're able to ask you more questions and get to understand you in real time. And as things are coming up, we can just have a more casual conversation. We can certainly do this via chat. We do this all day, every day anyways. But it does give us a piece of time during the day to just focus on you individually and understand what are you really trying to accomplish? And we'll make recommendations based on that too. Because a lot of what we do is we'll have users say, I want X to occur. I go, great, why? I want to understand deeply because we might have a better alternative that you may not be aware of. So definitely take advantage of those.
And one note there, really, if you're looking to target the buy box on any of those listings, we do have a help article around creating a buy box strategy. And that buy box strategy in the rules-based section, or rules-based options, I guess, of creating a strategy, that's already pre-configured with our best recommendations for winning the buy box. So with the exception of the min and max price section of that strategy, that's going to be all set. Obviously, feel free to look over those settings, make sure they're in line with what your expectations are. But that would be a great alternative to Maven, especially if you're looking to target the buy box, take that from your competitors, and that strategy is already pre-configured for you there.
Yeah. See, Ken just added Aura as an app to my phone. Mind blown. Yes, it's wonderful. It's designed for it. Even better, right? We didn't just like try to force it. It's actually, we designed for mobile first before desktop. So it's actually designed for it. So there's some subtle differences in terms of, accessing settings for each SKU and things like that. So yeah, it's honestly wonderful. That's why I love highlighting it. It's great. Especially if you're doing RA, your phone's already in your right hand anyway, scanning products. You might as well just open up Aura, do whatever you need to get done in real time. See, Ammo, you should keep this program as a norm for slow first-year earners. I didn't start selling until I joined Aura, looking toward a bright future with Aura in it. Thanks. So I really appreciate that. That's exactly what it's designed for. Brand new, first year, great, got you covered. You have a whole 12 months to figure things out. There's no time pressure. There's no, you got to figure it out in 14 days. No, take your time. It's all good. See, Ken, also currently making sales at 50% over previous buy box on one of my better listings, have made 20 sales on it since this morning. That's sick. Okay, so 20 sales since this morning, which is pretty good velocity, I'd say, and 50% over the buy box. And if you're using Maven, you probably did less work, which is even better, right? You didn't add any workload to make that happen. That's that gets me more excited, is that like, you got to do less work to get better performance. Again, that's that whole concept of technical leverage we talk about quite a bit. See, Ammo, also adding it to my phone. I love it. Love it. Keep adding them to your phone. Go ham. Go ham. I love it. Pump it. Let's see. Jose, oh, beautiful. Thank you guys. Also, I am so glad the 2-click to Amazon listing is being worked on. Great job. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely hear you on that. We're pushing that pretty hard. We're in the click reduction business, as I like to say. So whenever we're reviewing design, new design ideas, it's always like, well, that took 3 clicks. Could we make it 1? And sometimes I'm like, I don't even want you to touch your mouse, right? Like that's why, search, you hit the / on your keyboard, your cursor immediately goes to the global search and you can start typing and hit enter. I want you to touch your mouse as little as possible. We're definitely have a lot of work to get to that place, but we're already designing for things like that, command palettes, all these kind of cool things. So try to make things more keyboard friendly, because a lot of times you can move way faster just typing away, right? Your hands are already on your keyboard anyways. Let's see, is there an info page on what worked and what X product sold for? I should know this. You're fine. So actually go to the pricing activity page. You'll see that in the left nav. If you click that, you actually see a log of all the price changes, what the price change was if it was using Hyperdrive. And if you click on one of those, you'll get a pop-up that will show more details as to why that occurred. I can't tell you why every single time, especially with Maven, because it is a bit of a black box there. But if you're using role-based, we'll explicitly tell you what setting and what competitor triggered that price change to occur. I think transparency here is very important where we can do it. Again, with Maven, with AI, it's a little harder because it's not algorithmic in that way, right? But we do, even for Maven, we'll show you hey, here's all the price changes you made. Here's where you went from and where you went to. Did the price go up or down? And also, if you're on a specific SKU page, if you click the 3 dots in the top right, you can see the pricing activity there. If you click that, it will pre-filter that pricing log just for that particular SKU. So if you kind of want to see how things are changing over time, you can do it that way. Or even better, scroll down to the performance setting section at the bottom of the SKU page. In the top left of the grid there, you'll see price. That's a chart. That is your price over a period of time visualized. The price log is nice for getting really detailed into the granularities of what's happening. But if you kind of want to see the trend, how are things going? Is my price going up, down, left, right, what have you? That chart is really designed to answer that specific question, because you want to see, is my price going up, down, what's happening? And in the same view, you're seeing the buy box ownership percentage, you're seeing units sold, all these different things. And so you get to see a broader picture to see how are things going right now. So you have a few options for kind of peering into how are things changing with your specific price over a period of time. See, Abib, do you have an app on Android? If yes, what's the name? So we don't have an app, but again, this works just the same. We've tested it. So log in on your browser on your phone, go to the dashboard, and then add it to your home screen. It's actually, if you go to help.goor.com and type in the search mobile, we show you exactly how to do it on iPhone and on Android. It's roughly similar, but there's some differences. But you just add it to the home screen. So if you go to help.goor.com, search mobile, we'll walk you through I think it's like 3 steps to do it. Super simple, but it works just the same. So you can 18 to 27 bucks was the change. Love that. Love seeing that. That's sick. Well, this was the fastest office hours I think I've ever experienced. So we are already at time, which is crazy because it's felt like 20 minutes. We're going to end it here for time. We appreciate everybody coming through. Appreciate all the awesome, kind feedback as well. Knowing how things are working with our users is so important. Getting these ideas, seeing that everybody is dying for a seller board integration is wonderful. So heard for sure. But if you have any further questions or comments, please send those to us in support, hello@goor.com, or that live chat, preferably, because we can have a live conversation. We want to hear from you. We love getting feedback, whether you love something or you hate something, you have big questions, whatever. We want all of it. And again, if you have not experienced one of our onboarding sessions, please take advantage of that. We don't charge for it. We love doing them. We do them every single day, and it's really going to take you from you kind of understand the tool to you're getting the most out of it, and you're really going to enjoy that. And again, it's not super, super long. I think my voice is shot. Casey, any last words?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Good session this week, folks, and we will see you at the same time next week.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, again, everyone, thank you so much for making the time. And we will see you all next week, next Tuesday, or I keep saying Tuesday, next Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. EST. We will be back doing it again. Enjoy the rest of your week.